Yo, what's going on, Blackish University? This is part two of All the Way Home. It's a film from 1957 that documents what it might have been like when a black family moves into town or moves next door. And it just shows a lot of the racism and some of the stereotypes that people had, but it also shows what could possibly be the beginning of redlining or why some of these practices are in place. So, without further ado, let's get right back to it.
Now images rise up. Riots at night, murder, rape, images of violation, fears that lie deep in people's lives. And a man stands suddenly alone.
When you stand for what you believe in, it's quite often even those who stood with you before show their true colors. Always remember that. You're always alone, regardless of how they make you feel. Otherwise, when you have your own thoughts, when you're a thought leader or leader in your field, or have an opinion that's not like the masses, you are on your own.
You hear about Candy?
Are you serious? That's all we've been talking about with our house.
Yeah, ours too. The way I see it, school's one thing. Sorry for kids to learn what it's all about. But...
Sure, but when it comes to your home's different. We've got our rights too. They can't force us to live with them.
Yeah, they're going to try to force this in my block.
We got our rights too.
Nice to see you, Peterson.
Nice to see you.
Well, FDR face.
They play. They play. And of course, they're all different. But what does it mean when one level is kept? One color, one group. What their grown-ups think of as one kind of people.
It's funny too, because you can see, you watch videos of younger kids playing, right? And they have no concept of race. It's funny because the other day, I have a daughter that's 5 years old. She's in kindergarten. And she mentioned that she might be getting bullied. So I was trying to figure out a little bit more about this alleged bullier, or bullying person. And I was like, baby, are they a boy or a girl? She said, it's a boy, a little bit older. And I was trying to say, are they kind of dark like Daddy and Nana? Or she's like, no, they're white like me. And she's like the farthest thing from white. But in her mind, right, that's all. She's just like, oh, I'm not black. I'm white. I don't know. I'm like everybody else in the suburb that we live in. And it's just so funny that they don't have that concept. But without further ado, let's get back to it.
Shutting out the rest. Even here, playing. Are they cut off from part of life?
See?
Are they cut off from part of themselves in refusing to touch the variety, the richness, the texture of reality that is always there for us? These children and this place.
Candy goes through with this. Land values around here won't be worth a blood nickel. You know what he's provoked around here? I've heard that some young idiots thought they had to protect the honor of the community. Just what Ed's done, I don't know.
Now, if you didn't catch it on part one of this video, he showed his home to a black family. And other people, of course, noticed that. So now they're trying to put pressure on him to not sell to the black family because what it might do to other property values and do to the neighborhood. So somebody crept up on his house and threw paint on a young child, I imagine his daughter. But it's crazy. It's like, obviously it's just a movie, but if they're willing to go that far to intimidate a white person, right, to keep these society norms the same, just imagine the pressure that they could put on this black person who's already in a position of less power, right? So one thing that, let's get right back to it here.
You want to hide your head, okay. But I can't. I've had a steady stream of complaints since we opened this morning. That's good, Ted. Shows a fine spirit. That paint splashing was a real violation of this place. When I saw it this morning, I was No, Ralph. Complaints against Candy.
He's talking about something else. He's talking about the black people moving in the neighborhood versus attacking a little girl.
Well, a flood, you say? From whom? Maybe I exaggerated. Tom Elder, very substantial. Elder. Anyone else? Miss Wesser.
He looks like the police when you're trying to report a
Well,
crime.
we both know Miss Wesser for
Oh,
years.
why would they do that?
What did you say? Well, it wasn't so much what she said. When you're dealing with complaints, it's precisely that. Just what did Miss Wesser say? She said she couldn't stand that smell.
So
Listen, I've got nothing against those people, but why go looking for trouble? Property values in this neighborhood will go to pot if we don't stop what Candy's doing. Oh, look, Ted. I'm a practical man. You don't work for this bank very long unless you are. I have to talk to you from two positions, from my own and from the bank's. They're not necessarily the same. We can't have people like Tom Elder and Miss Wesser throwing us into a panic. Land values don't have to go down. Not if the people in the community act like they believe in themselves. Here's an article reported in the New York Times which says that the official organization of home appraisal experts finds that land values actually have gone up in this type of situation. Oh, come on now, Ralph. You can do anything with figures, you know that. The important thing is
They
we
knew
don't
even
want
back
anything
then
like
that
to
you could
happen
manipulate the
here.
numbers.
I've got 2 daughters, you know. What's the point, Ted? Well, I'd like the bank to get word around that... No, strike that out. I hope that you and the bank will reach policy decision on real estate loans that will reassure the home.
And for those that aren't familiar with redlining, this could potentially be the start, or the potential start, or the conversation that happens behind closed doors, because that's the thing. There's different types of racism, right? There's what you see in the street, somebody making fun of you or clutching their purse when you walk by. But one could argue that the larger form of discrimination and racism, it happens behind closed doors. It's people that might have a smile on their face and greet you, but they make policy decisions that affect the masses. This person, this guy doesn't believe in him, right? He's kind of shrugging him off and being sensible, but he's saying, hey, I want you and your position. I want you to take a position on this, and I want you to talk to the people that are in charge of financing these people, right? And if we can start to move up the ladder and affect larger policies, decisions, this affects us. This impacts us not looking like racists, right? We're racist, but without. It's not our decision. It comes from above, right?
Homeowners of this community, and the merchants, and the service companies. That's quite a package. Look, Ted, I don't make the decisions around here. I'll tell you what. I'll call downtown and see what they say. Well, it's not on my side of the fence. At least sit on it, okay?
Sit on this.
We'll
racism.
see.
Sit on these.
It's hard to know what's right and what's wrong. It's the most difficult thing we ever faced. Not just for Ed.
See, one of the problems with racism and discrimination, I don't know if you've ever heard the intelligent quote that silence is violence. It's come about more recently, especially with Black Lives Matters and a lot of the movements that have been going on after George Floyd. But it's not necessarily the people that are saying these discriminatory things and have these racist policies. It's the silence, right? It's the silence of the rest of the community that's the real issue, because the people have the power, and if you put pressure on the people in power that are making these decisions, we can have change. But it's when everyone, the police force, right, intimidating people in black neighborhoods, putting their knee on people's necks so they can't breathe. That's nothing new. Back when I was younger, they used to drop us off in a gang-infested neighborhood if we didn't say or do what they wanted. They put us in, a really bad position. So it's on the good cops that it's their duty to say something, right? It's my duty as somebody who's multiracial, who might find myself in conversations that somebody that's African, or pure black, or just shows as more black would be, because they might not be racist to him, but they get to me and they're like, can you believe this guy? It's up to me to then say, well, what do you mean? What are you actually saying here? And checking that person. And if you don't do it, they think it's okay, and they think they can continue to do it.
It's me. But for Laurie and Bob and my daughter, and for all the friends we've made, after all, this is our community too. We leave something here.
I was thinking about that very thing. I've heard about what happened.
You know what I can't bear? Ed thinks I'm so lovely, so full of the moralities. I looked at that little girl and all her sweetness and blackness, and I thought just that.
Just what?
Black. That's what I thought. Black, like them, I thought. And everything I heard as a child came back to me. Don't go near one. Don't go into cellars, even with one you know. You'll be killed. You'll be lying in a ditch dead. Worse.
Wow.
But that stain looks black. They're not really black, are they? When I looked out of the window and that car drove up and he got out, I thought, no. You know how I was brought up, narrow. No evil, but not much
Narrow-minded.
good, as a matter of fact.
Simple.
Not much soul. And
He's like,
no visible
what?
body.
No, you're not about to say this.
No poverty. Just enormous blindness of very good material. So something in me went, no. I was shocked at myself.
No, but you said that was.
Some shred of prejudice and an infinitesimal spark of human feeling. Isn't that awful?
Be ashamed by oneself? No.
That first moment, I didn't want them even to look at the house. Then we got talking, and I began to like them. After all, it's a house that they want and that they can afford.
He's already thinking in my head, I gotta replace this chick.
When I tried to clean Laurie's dress, something happened. I want them to have the house.
That's how change
That's the
happens.
first awful thing you've said, Cal.
And this is a religious
I
man,
want them to
right?
be like anybody else. They'll have a house they want and can pay for.
The reason. The fact that it's your anger, your resentment of what happened to Laurie, your hatred that's embodied with it. It's not a motive.
Yes, I see. How does the church stand on this? Where do you stand?
Do not put your faith in any man. And I tell you, the institution of church has done more harm in this world than a lot of these radical, crazy groups who sometimes still fight in the name of religion, right? Remember, religion, there were religious people that were bigots and racist and discriminatory. There were a lot of very religious people that condoned slavery. There's a lot of very religious people that have done some horrible things, and not just in this century. If we continue to go back and we look at the history of war and violence, it was always in the name of some god. And it's crazy to think about, but religion and what your pastor says should not be your definition of what's moral and right.
The church sees it as a challenge. We have a chance here to affirm our deepest beliefs in the Spirit, in the variousness of man, and the unity of the Spirit.
Not all the church thinks this way.
No, not all. But enough of us. Take a look at this, Carol. It's a declaration of conscience, a statement of faith principles used as a focal point by those people in a community who refuse to allow ignorance and fear and hate to wreck their neighborhood. Now, this problem is the greatest challenge the church has had to meet in a long time. It's not always easy meeting challenges, but this sort of thing can help us to meet our responsibility. It's a place to begin.
Sit down, Ted. I'll stand, Ralph.
I'm racist and back.
Understand this is an informal statement. It also may be taken as a statement of bank policy. It is concerned only with that aspect of the problem, if it is a problem, that affects us as a financial institution. This bank is in the business of making sound loans properly secured. Period. Sound loans? What does that mean?
It's like, how dare you? How dare you go against me? I'm a white man in a position of power, and I'm 6 inches taller than you. Oh, no chin heaven.
This happens here, there won't be many loans worth making, and you know it.
Him and I got the same hat.
And there are others in the community who think so too. In my experience, the question of whether a man pays his debts has nothing to do with the color of his skin or where he came from.
The content of your character.
What, in your opinion? This is a fact. The better element will leave. We'll have a slum on our hands. Ted, I think that depends on us. All right, Ralph. Now we know where we stand. You go ahead and talk about bank policy, but I'll tell you one thing. When something like this gets started, you don't stop it. And if anybody around here is going to sell any real estate, it's going to be Ted Moose.
I'll take my business elsewhere.
One house, its neighbors, confusion of a street. They'll try to keep it from flaring up, but each of them has
Meetings
fears that
behind
rage
closed
and
doors.
threats that seem to come from outside. When you were a child, what was it? The Jews, the Poles, the Irish, Italians, Chinese? These fears are real. About their homes, yes. Is their money threatened? They believe it is. Threat to their social standing guarded so long? They think so.
And the law you to recognize it. Can't legislate that. You can't do what? I mean, you can't force tolerance by law. Of course you can. But this has nothing to do with tolerance. This has to do with practice. You can, by law, prevent men from committing crimes against others that are always, in reality, crimes against themselves. That's what law is for.
Oh, that's all very fine. But how are we going to keep this neighborhood good? We don't want undesirables. We don't want land values to take a nosedive.
Well, you know as much about land values as I do. They don't have to do a nosedive at all. This afternoon, I waved an article on property values in Ted Moat's face. I'd really only read the headline myself, but since then I've read it through carefully, and this is what it had to say. There was a study for the University of California on 9 San Francisco neighborhoods in which Negroes had bought homes since 1940.
I suppose you're going to tell us property values went up.
Exactly. Apparently, there have been dozens of such studies made, and the findings have been that prices go up, not down, if anything, over a period of time. No, I've heard everything. All right. I'm a banker by profession. No heart, very limited kind of head. Man's wallet is his castle, that kind of imagination. All right? Well, let me tell you this. A man's a desirable neighbor if he's financially all right and he doesn't throw beer cans all over his front lawn. Has nothing whatever to do with the color of his skin or religion or where his parents come from. It has to do with the worth of a person. That's sound economics.
Mr. Candy, you're a man of good judgment. Would you say that these people were nice people? You're the first person that asked me that. Yes, they were nice people.
Candy, what are you trying to do to us? What grudge got you going against this place anyway? Look, if anybody's damaging this community, it's not Ed Candy. I'm leaving. We've been at this for 2 hours, and all I know is we're not getting anywhere. All right. As the community is ready to pull out, and nobody wants to do anything about it. Just a second, Tom. What's been happening here has happened before in other places. It's always to somebody's advantage to stir things up. It's no old game that Ted Moats played here today. That's Ted Moats. It's not the whole real estate profession. What happens here, or anywhere, is completely a matter of how people handle themselves. When they act like human beings, the values are sound as, well, a silver dollar.
Ted Moats' figures show different. I spent the afternoon going up and down Elm Street ringing doorbells, literally giving a sales talk. Some of the signs are out already.
Sure. And Ted's got 10 new clients and maybe 10 new commissions.
Mr. Yates, Mr. Hebner, couldn't you walk up and down Elm Street and tell them that?
Well, what we might do, too, is put out our own signs. It's been done. Something like, we're not selling. We believe in our community.
I just don't know. I don't know how we can be good neighbors. Even if the land values stay the same, the street's going to be different.
Doesn't that depend on us? Did any of us really choose each other as neighbors? We get along.
Yeah, really.
But how long can we keep the door closed without locking ourselves in? What we must learn is how to keep from poisoning ourselves with fear and barriers and ghettos.
Nonsense. Negroes don't live in ghettos anymore. Good heavens, look at the housing projects in the city. They're not ghettos.
Of course they are. Any place where a human being is shut in or shut out because of the color of his skin is a ghetto, in the real sense of the word. I know that now. I guess I knew it all along, but didn't think much about it, though. But they are ghettos.
Giving them that truth.
No, Mr. Candy, it's not really up to us, you know. It's up to you alone whether the sale will be made.
No, Jim. You're wrong there. What I do isn't nearly as important as what you do. That's what this is all about tonight. He's right. We can't duck it. Ed Candy's decision is his own, but that's no longer important. It's what we do that counts. This isn't about one man and his house. This is about us as a community. And it has to be fought out in the white communities, in the white people, each in himself.
Now it's been said, the community is engaged. As we move toward this beginning, there's a quickening of pace. You can see it right here in these people as they begin to face up to their problems. We need ourselves, freed from our old slaveries and exclusions. We are fighting for a sense of community. In order to have that ever, we must look at what we have been excluding. We need ourselves in all our pride of differences to lift the old threat that brought us here. The way we meet the difference in people, this can give us strength. The range, the variousness that we have, this is a source of power always when it is met well and used. This possibility is very great just now. It is whatever we feel and do and think when we go out of here and go home tonight. It is deep in what we are prepared to give, what we feel surely, in the people around us, in ourselves, all the way home.
Wow. For something as old as it is, I mean 1957, whew, you know, it goes to show you how, you know, we're still having a lot of these conversations today, but they're just held in different ways where people don't necessarily need to say race. You know, it's from policy decisions, right? Income requirements, debt to income ratios. There's different things that, you know, why is it that someone who appears as white, especially on paper, would normally qualify for a different type of loan or more of a loan, right? Why is it that people are treated different with lending? I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with predatory lending and different practices that perpetuate the cycle of poverty. You know, there's a way that you can limit people and keep them in a bad position to keep yourself in a position of power. And it's so important that we have these conversations. And I'll wrap it up here. But the biggest takeaway from this is, again, it's not saying that you're not racist because you have 3 black friends, right? Or, my niece dated a black kid, and I knew his family. It's not that. It's when you find yourself in a position of power, and that can come off as differently. I know different people say they have power differently, right? They hold power and show power differently. But when you find yourself in these conversations, it's so important to say something, to check these people and let them know that it's not okay. And you don't necessarily have to be white to do that. You might be educated, Black, Spanish, Polish, Irish. If oppression and discrimination stand, it's a danger to everyone, right? I might not be like you. I got my associate's degree, started working on my bachelor's degree. I owned a company. I own properties in Chicago. It's partially on me, right? I've had some success in this life, but now when I hear other people say things that are like make you kind of break your neck, it's important to say something in a polite and respectful way and let them know, like, hey, what do you mean I speak well? Speak well for what, right? And there was actually really quick here when I first bought this house. This is in the western suburbs of Chicago. I bought this home, 4 or 5 years ago, and I was kind of rolling around with my basketball clothes, kind of cleaning up. I didn't have much furniture here, and the doorbell's just going off, ding, 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 and I'm just like, what? Nobody knows I live here. I run downstairs, I always got my, I'm kind of bald. I got my beard going, my basketball clothes. And I just peeked out, and it's just some suburban lady holding a pile of cookies. And I opened the door, and keep in mind, I'm not a small guy. I'm over 6'1", over 300 pounds, I opened up the door, and her mouth just dropped. She was just like, and I thought I was just waiting for it. You could just read it on her face. She was going to ask, is the owner here? May I speak with the owner? And I was just waiting for it. And then finally I was like, hi, I'm Brandon. Most people call me B. How are you? And she was just like, I made cookies. And I was like, oh, thank you. It's great, meeting someone in the neighborhood. But it's so funny. We have I bet you she went back and called her husband like, Bob, guess what? And it can be good or bad because the same thing happens here. And then people are like, I've heard things like, oh man, it's kind of cool to have a black friend. And I'm just like, bro, you can't say stuff like that. It's not okay. Everyone does need a black friend. But it's like, so it's just so important to have these conversations. Thank you for checking out the movie with me. It was great to do a reaction to something like this. I learned a lot. But like and subscribe. We go over really cool stuff like this as well as new music. It's always good to hear comments and just keep the dialogue going.